Welcome to Living by Faith with Trillia Newbell, the bright spot to your Saturday morning. Hear from God's Word, engage with guests who know, and be encouraged to live by faith today and every day. I'm your host, Trillia Newbell, and I am so glad to be here. So a recent study from Barna Research finds that young adults aren't just spiritually curious, they're increasingly participating in church life. Yet, even as engagement rises, many churches still struggle to integrate single adults into the rhythms of ministry, often leaving them feeling unseen or treated as if their singleness is a problem to solve rather than a meaningful part of their calling. Today, if you are a single adult, I want to hear from you. I don't want to have a conversation about singles or singleness. I want to have a conversation with you. Give us a call and let us know how the church can serve singles. Give us a call at 877 548 3675 or 877 Live 675. My guest today, Doug Hankins, also wants to hear from you. He is the author of Still Single, Still Called, and has a desire to see singles thrive in the church. Doug, welcome to Living by Faith.
Glad to be here.
Doug, you're actually married, but you are a pastor, professor, and friend to countless single adults that you've walked alongside for more than 20 years. You've noted that most singleness books in the American landscape fall into one of two buckets. The first tells singles to stay morally pure and spiritually focused until they can get married. Marriage is the goal of many of these books. The second tells singles to work harder and find their place in a church, and then they'll be happy. So my understanding is that these are, from your research, the two buckets that most books fall into, and you aren't really sure if Jesus could read these messages and receive them. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, in the first bucket, if I'm not presuming to be Jesus, but let's say Jesus walks in with everything all of your listeners know about him, and a well-meaning church member says, "Well, you just need to keep morally pure, and then you keep doing all your things, and one day your day will come." Jesus might respond, "Well, my day is already here." That's at least Mark 1:15, right? The kingdom of God is at hand right now. In the second camp, I think Jesus would have a hard time fitting into that too. I think he has sort of I don't want to say a third way, but he operates with a different perspective. And I think Paul seems to say that in 1 Corinthians 7. So the two probably most famous fellows in the New Testament who are single, they don't seem to fit the way we traditionally try to engage and build community with single adults in our churches.
Lean into that a little bit more because that is really interesting, and I have not heard it said so plainly like that, that Paul and Jesus, the two probably most famous singles in the scriptures, of course, Jesus is the focus of the scriptures, they don't fit into our model or mold. So what is our model typically, and how don't they fit?
I'm going to give our churches a pass because I love churches. I don't think they're doing
Yes.
anything wrong per se, but I think historically there has been a church system that's developed, and it's been very helpful and fruitful over the last 50 to 70 years. Post World War II, for a variety of reasons, American life was very much a married life. You came back from war, you went to college on the GI Bill, you got married, you moved to a brand new house in this thing called a suburb. You didn't really have commute times. Your job was locally situated. Your church was locally situated. And so churches and restaurants and elementary schools and gas stations and all of the places we built in the post-war era in the United States were built for married folks
Yeah.
who have 2.3 kids and the white picket fence and the dog. And there was an assumed commonality in American life. And singleness was sort of this blip on the screen of, oh, well, I guess you're just not there yet. But the there piece was where everybody was going to in American life. And the church sort of came alongside that with an evangelism and discipleship strategy to say, okay, we'll help you as you achieve this normal milestone of marriage. We'll help you in your spiritual life. Well, and again, in 1960, where 2 out of every 3 people statistically are getting married, that was a really effective approach. In 2026, where only half of the people we know are getting married,
Hmm.
the system that's built for marriage doesn't work. And so I guess what I'm saying is to make marriage a necessary milestone or a hurdle that everybody in your church needs to jump over in order to participate in the life of the church is going to be increasingly less effective at engaging our population that's 50% single. And I think Jesus and Paul seem to figure out a way to be part of Christian community and even lead in Christian community as single people. And I don't know that I have a fully built out, come to my conference and you can buy this, book that'll tell you how to do this in your church. But I think I have sort of the start, at least I have the, what's the sourdough thing? The starter
Oh,
dough.
the starter,
That's
yes.
what I got. This book is the starter dough for that. Okay. So if you want to make your own singles community approach, you can buy this book and you can get started with us.
Well, what I don't okay, I still don't know what, and I know we will get there, what the approach that Paul and Jesus are on that we as a church aren't doing. So I would love to solve that in a second, but my first question to you is what first opened your eyes to the idea that singleness is a calling and not a problem to solve?
Well, that's a great question. The quick answer or the bigger answer is the waiting room kept getting larger for me. And what I mean by that is my wife and I were doing college and young adult ministry in the early 2000s. And it was like people came in the factory system. They came to our Bible study. They came to our group. They met their significant other. We performed weddings. We did marriage counseling. And it was just part of the rhythm of life.
Right.
And around 2010, I would say, that sort of switched. We had more and more people who were sort of still waiting to get married. And then in 2015, we said, man, that waiting room was really long. Our list of friends who weren't married yet was really long. And the just keep being moral and keep going to church, and one day your marriage will come approach. People started telling us they're opting out of that.
Hmm.
And that was the point when we said, oh, we need to go back and look at the data because we might have misunderstood our audience and our mission field here. And there you go.
Yeah. So when you say opting out, do you mean leaving the church, or do you mean this idea of staying pure is hard? I would love to dive into that. What do you mean by opting out?
Great question. I think any and or all. So
Yes.
opting
Okay.
out of regular church participation because the messaging is going to be for married people.
Mm.
I think it's opting out of being sexually pure in your relationships because it's hard to find a guy or it's hard to find a girl unless you hook up. Not just difficult, almost impossible. Even people would tell me, even the Christians that I meet online or meet in church want to hook up.
Hmm.
And so there's just a cultural relaxing of that idea of purity for marriage. I think opting out of um, evangelical, healthy Orthodox Christianity because it's so tied to a marriage centric model of ministry. I think opting out of this idea that marriage is going to complete me one day. I think opting out of kind of a traditional, you hear this all the time, I don't want to be a trad wife or a trad dad. So opting out of all of those things, I would think anything we could say is normal church Christianity in 1999 is pretty much sort of gone by the wayside for a lot of our friends. And it's not that they wouldn't want to return to that. It's just they don't have a good model or a pathway of how to get there. And they don't have a good parachute for if it doesn't happen for them. And they're staring at really scary statistics. And so I think on the practical side for us, we've had to completely shift our posture and our tone and not make marriage just a given. We try to lean in. Hey, 50% of people are single today. That may not be for you, but like Jesus and Paul, you can still live this perfectly abundant, fulfilled life. as a single person. And so, therefore, we need to build the kind of community around you that you're going to need into your 60s and 70s if the Lord allows you to stay single. Um, and that's been a difficult shift for us and for everybody else, but I think a healthy and a good one.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm wondering, what do you think the shift was? Because you said basically people aren't getting married. When did that start happening, or what was that shift? Do you know?
Oh, that's great. When did people stop getting married? People stopped getting married in the late aughts. So, right as pop punk music is at its peak.
Hmm.
This is like early, I'm going by cultural things here. So, this is like LeBron James to the Miami Heat era. This is Mumford and Sons are popular on the radio. It's about that era. There was sort of, for whatever reason, as millennials are coming to a close and as Gen Z is first starting to kind of enter into their own um, awareness of American culture, that later millennial, early Gen Z is sort of suggesting, well, I'll tell you what the shift is. And LeBron James is a great example of this. And shout out to LeBron James. He's a really good person. LeBron James gets married to his wife, Savannah, well into his Miami Heat career. And they had two kids at this point and owned multiple houses and, were a pretty stable family, but they just weren't married. And LeBron James, like Rory Gilmore on the Gilmore Girls, like many of these later millennials, early Gen Z, they stopped seeing marriage as a starting line for life, and they started seeing marriage as a finish line for life. So marriage is this luxury that I can try to achieve and obtain only after I've started my career, had a few kids, figured out my life, figured out myself, da 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 da. So marriage is viewed increasingly as a luxury item that not everybody can obtain. So you're going to have to work
Interesting.
hard to get it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
And go back and look at all the data. I mean, it's there.
oh, I believe you. And it's so fascinating and interesting, especially that idea of marriage as a luxury. I wanted to dive into that. If you have any comments or questions for Doug that you'd like to share, give us a call. We also have 5 copies of Still Single, Still Called that we would love to get into your hands. Give us a call at 877-548-3675 or 877 Live 675. Again, it's 877-548-3675 or 877 Live 675. More when we return. Welcome back to Living by Faith with Trillia Newbell. I'm talking with Doug Hankins, and we are talking about singleness. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear your questions, your comments. We have 5 copies of Still Single, Still Called to give away. He is the author of Still Single, Still Called. Give us a call at 877-548-3675 or 877 Live 675. So, Doug, before the break, we were talking about something that I found very interesting and a little bit fascinating because I've never thought of people waiting to get married because marriage is a luxury. I thought you would have said something like fear, or maybe they wait to get married because of selfishness. I didn't know where we were going to go, but the idea of it, people waiting because they're waiting to kind of fit it into their lives after they're established and it's a luxury is a unique idea to me. So I'd love to ask you more about that. But then also, what does it look like for a single Christian to live out a sense of calling right where they are?
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to get super nerdy here. So
I
I
love
hope
it.
everybody,
Let's
yeah, I hope everybody in your audience is ready at 8:16 Central for some nerdiness. Okay. In general, I think these are generally true statements. I'm not an economist, but I have a friend who is, and he tells me I'm on good ground. So, number one, in late stage capitalism, which is sort of an ethereal term, no one's really defined it well, but I think many experts would suggest that America and other Western countries are sort of in a late stage capitalism period. And when this happens, you have haves and have nots, because the haves have figured out either how to be more efficient in the system, or they just have so much amassed capital and wealth that they can sort of create the system to be in their benefit. Okay. It's just sort of human self interest. If that's the case, again, I'm not saying it's true, but if that's the case, you're going to find that the haves will continue traditional patterns of living according to whatever culture that you're in. And so in our case, I would maybe suggest that the haves tend to be um, more progressive politically, more conservative fiscally, and they tend to uh, still continue the patterns of maintaining wealth, of which marriage is a key component. Marriage is an incredible wealth building tool, and so the people who continue to get married with a fairly standard predictability are, and this profile is a politically progressive person who grew up in a middle class to wealthy family, who makes quite a bit of money each year, who attend still a pretty progressive church. You can think whatever your progressive church is. They go once a month, but they got married when they were 25, and they got married to a person, a family friend or something like that, and they've sort of preserved their wealth. And marriage is used, much like it's been used in the monarchy, as a way to preserve alliances. That's still happening with regularity among that sort of upper end of the economy. On the have not side, rather than seeing marriage as something that's going to help us, that have not half of the United States sees marriage as an incredibly expensive proposition, which is only about 50% successful, according to
Mm.
divorce statistics. And so it's just a matter of logic. People are, young people are looking at this going, why would I get married when I don't know what I'm going to do? I'm not sure how my career is going to play out. College is really expensive. It's not guaranteeing me a nice, comfortable job. I need sort of people in this space tend to say, hey, I need to be wise and efficient in the way I live my life. And the only way that it looks like I can do that is to be single and try to figure out if I can find a way to make it here, get a house, be stable, all that. And once I get all that, then I'll bring somebody into my life and we'll try to bring kids into it. And so what's happening, it's actually sort of a middle third. The middle third of this picture here of American life is someone who is probably pretty conservative to moderate politically and theologically, attends a pretty conservative Orthodox church in a major US city, because that's where the better jobs are. And this man or this woman is trying their hardest to get stable, whatever that looks like in their career, so that they can then achieve all these things they've wanted, kids and marriage and all these things.
Yeah.
And the lower third of that is, which is really interesting, is sort of, I won't say poor, but maybe not super wealthy, but comes from a really traditionally conservative household. Those people are still getting married at 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. It's just they've sort of opted out of the rat race of American corporate life, and they either have family businesses or they started their own pottery Instagram channel or whatever is happening. And they're sort of the traditional housewife, house dad who does traditional things. They're still getting married, but that's a much smaller population. And when I give you those three profiles, you can see how about half the country is still married and half the country is single.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can think of, even just thinking of my kids and their friends and the things they talk about, and really the fear of not being able to afford a home, or not being able to afford a lifestyle, for a lack of better words. I could see how, especially in that second category, how people would delay marriage. And Maureen on the line, I believe she has a question similar to what we're talking about. Maureen?
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. Um, I do have a question. I'm the mom of three sons, aged 39 to 49. As far as I know, nobody is dating. Certainly, no one is married. And I want to know, what is my part. One of them is walking after the Lord and doing well with Him. Um, but I know that they feel like losers. And
Hmm.
how can I encourage them as a mom without overstepping the bounds of
Mm.
that relationship?
Wow, Maureen, thank you for calling in. Number one, let me encourage you first. You're not alone and you haven't messed up, and this is not atypical. You are expressing what a lot of parents today are expressing. And it's part of the reason I wrote this book, which is why it's for singles and for those who love singles, because we have a whole generation of probably boomers and Gen Xers whose kids just they didn't jump onto the conveyor belt that they jumped on, and in part because that conveyor belt doesn't exist anymore. And so, what I would say is, number one, you're not wrong, you're not bad. So be encouraged in that. Number two, what I would say is the best thing you can do is be consistent for your children. Consistency will breed momentum. So just consistently love them, consistently pray for them, consistently encourage them. That's going to be the best thing. Young men in particular are facing a really interesting culture. Even if they want to get out and date and get married and get jobs and do all what we would consider the traditional milestones of adulthood, they're finding that impossible. Um, all of the data is suggesting today that, just using politics as an example, politically speaking, young women under the age of 50 are going to lean more liberal progressive, and young men are going to be somewhat moderate to conservative. And so let's just say your sons are moderate to conservative. If they go on a first date and they say, let's talk about politics, there's already a divide. There's such a divided culture. It's economic, haves and have nots. It's politically divided. It's theologically divided. We're in a really divided time. And so, and churches, again, are not set up for your 35-year-old single sons. So this is not on you. But I would say, in general, a principle that I think will be helpful for you is help them as much as you can, help encourage them to get into healthy community. People who get into healthy community have the best opportunity at healthy matrimony. But if we can prioritize community over matrimony, that's going to be a tremendous advantage for them in the dating scene. I would say number two, dating has always been this way. It still is. Dating is all about, it's just like fishing. You gotta throw all your bait in the water. And in that respect, what I mean is, you, hey, there's going to be lots of churches in your town that have lots of singles groups. I would tell your kids to go visit all of them. I would encourage them. There's a really great book called How to Get a Date Worth Keeping, and I would recommend that to you. A lot of the principles there are really important for dating. But again, just my encouragements to you: keep praying for your sons and keep encouraging them and help them to find healthy community.
And
Marie,
that book was How to Get a Date. Say that again, please.
Yes, How to Get a Date Worth Keeping.
Okay, thank you so much.
thank you. Stay on the line. We will also make sure that you get a copy of Still Single, Still Called. So stay on the line so my producer can get your address and make sure to get you that copy. You know, her call it's so interesting and so revealing because I bet there are so many people who are wondering what's going on. I have a friend who posted something online about singleness and she said something like, "Come on guys, just get married." And boy did that not go very well. And it there is something like you said, Doug, that I think our divided culture, it's really hard to date. It's really hard to find people. But what I love about your book and what we're also going to be talking about is that you can thrive where you are. Um, Now, I do wonder, how do you encourage the person who wants to thrive where they are, but they are very discontent? They don't want to be single. How would you encourage their hearts, Doug?
It's great. I have this conversation quite often in my church context. And what I typically say is the following. Number one, you're not crazy and you didn't miss the boat. You haven't missed the Lord's calling on your life. You know, you weren't asleep when you should have been praying, and that's when God was going to tell you the thing. You're exactly where God has you in this season, and Romans 8:28 is still true, and he's still working. I would also say, hey, this is a great time to just observe what's going on in our mission field. You know, we're all dating in a mission field called America. And if you're in America, just our mission field has shifted. It's a different place. I don't know that it's post Christian, but it's at least closer to something like post Christian. And so part of this is just a discernment process to be one of the things we say at our church and in our family, the first one to reality wins, meaning accepting reality for what it really is and not what you wish it could be is such a healthy step of spiritual growth. And so a lot of our single friends who wish they'd been married, I find that they've been walking with somewhat of a Pollyanna mentality about what dating could be. Their grandparents, their parents told them what it would be like. And again, the conveyor belt doesn't exist anymore. So there you go. That's what I'd say.
Okay. Well, we want to encourage you, encourage your faith, encourage you to walk out your faith. And that's what we are doing today. Keep on listening. We'll have more on Living by Faith when we return. Welcome back to Living by Faith with Trillia Newbell. I'm talking with Doug Hankins, and he is a pastor, he is a author, and he wants to help singles thrive. He has written a book called Still Single, Still Called, and we are giving it away. Give us a call at 877-548-3675. Ask Doug a question. Tell us your experience as a single. Again, it's 877-548-3675 or 877-LIVE-675. Rick from Nashville, you have a comment or a question.
Yeah. Hey, Doug. I'm 64. I got a friend that's 64. I've been married for 37 years, and he never did get married, but he's happy in his singleness. But he doesn't really go worship with a body of believers. And I love him. He's a great friend. And I just, I think he's got a calling. He's extremely smart. But do you have a podcast that you do that helps people, or I know your book's probably awesome, but I'm just saying that thing about, not feeling comfortable at church because you're single and everybody seems like they want to, find you a date, or like you're not complete unless you're married. I totally don't think that's real. I think that's, like you said, our society has made us think that way. So I'll let you answer.
Thank you, Rick. Doug,
Man, thanks for the phone call.
Yeah.
I don't yet. Maybe we need to start one. So I'll pick Trillia's brain about that. But how to be single at church. I don't know. We'll figure that out. But no, I'm a pastor. I preach regular sermons for all kinds of folks. So you're happy to follow us at First Winter Park if you want to hear me talk about things. And this book for me is more of an expression of my philosophy of community building than anything else. And so all of the principles I lay out in the book those are the principles we apply at our church. And so you're welcome to listen to that, but who knows, maybe I'll start a podcast one day and we'll go from there. Thank you for the call.
Rick, I think it would be great if when you get this book, Still Single, Still Called, you read it yourself, read it. And then you will be equipped to serve and care for your friend, and even your heart and your desire to call in, and you want resources. And I do believe that reading it, one of the things about being a writer is that you write books for a certain person. So for this book, it's for the singles, but it's also for those who love singles and want to encourage singles. So grab the book, read it, and see what you can glean as you care for your friend and encourage him. But let me just tell you this, Rick, I would encourage him to come to church, and maybe it's that you can introduce him to friends who can help him be a part of your church community and thrive within that community. So keep inviting him, keep being faithful to him, and know that God, He who began a good work in your friend will complete it. So that's my prayer and hope for him, is that he knows Jesus and that he can walk with him, and you can continue to encourage and serve him. Thank you for your call, Rick. It means a lot. Stay on the line so Karen, my producer, can get you a copy of Still Single, Still Called. Thank you again, Rick, for your call. Deborah from Chicago, you have a question or a comment?
My question is, thank you for taking my call, by the way. My
Yes.
question is similar to the woman that called previously. My adult children, three of them, there's only one of them is married. He's been married for several years. But the other two, um, my daughter is having a lot of frustration trying to find a suitable mate, and the son is a serial dater. So I'm like, he's not interested in marriage, and I'm just wondering if there's anything I can do to promote, to help my daughter in her situation, and promote my son to more reasonable behavior in the dating world.
Deborah, it feels like a very common problem that you're speaking of. We've got one who's waiting and hoping, and then the other who has no interest whatsoever. And Doug, I imagine in your research and also as you care for singles, you have those two categories. How would you encourage Deborah?
Yeah, great question. And, again, you're not alone in this. You are speaking to something that is a silent issue right now in American life and American church life. I will just say this: imagine being a parent who wants your kids to get married, but you're not a Christian and you live in America. That's happening too. I would start with encouragement. The benefit you have being a believer is you have Jesus, who lived his entire life as a single man into his 30s, and was fully satisfied in the Father. And so you are already winning. That's number one. So it totally affects your posture as a parent of single people. You have a winning lottery ticket. So you can relax, you can speak to them and encourage them from a place of fullness and peace. And with that, I would say these practical things. Number one, as you've probably done, make your home and make your conversations with them a really safe place for them to come. It might be that they want to get married and they want to please you, but they feel like they're disappointing you. And so they sort of pull their punches when they talk to you about these things. So I'd say make this conversation a really open conversation where there's a lot of freedom. Maybe even I would communicate to them, look, it might be that you never get married, and that's okay. That's an okay outcome in the Lord. And so I want to encourage you in that. But if it's your goal, then I want to put all my resources and my network behind you to help you with that. I mean, that's the kind of advice I find that works from parents to kids who find themselves still single but wanting to get married.
Deborah, thank you so much for your call. Stay on the line and we will make sure you get a copy of Still Single, Still Called by Doug Hankins. We want to encourage you and encourage your family as they walk this out. I mean, so many families are probably wrestling with this. It's interesting that we've had calls and so many who aren't even on the line yet who have the older children. It's the parents that are calling, which is interesting. They have the older children who are either not wanting to get married or haven't found someone, or serial daters. So my question to you, and this is really for the Christians, how can churches better affirm the dignity and purpose of single adults? Because as you've said, some of them may never get married or maybe they feel a calling to singleness. So how can we as church people encourage their dignity and purpose as singles?
Great question. I think that churches in general, church leaders, people in Sunday school classes and small groups and Bible studies, again, can all operate from the posture that singleness is not a problem to be solved. It's a unique life stage. And so therefore, when single people come in, we don't automatically problematize it and go, oh my goodness, you're probably wasting all your time on dating sites and your parents are probably worried sick about you. That's not the posture we would take as believers because Jesus is resurrected and we're okay. So that's number one, posture. I would say number two, strategically and practically, church leaders would do well to incorporate and look for ways to incorporate single people into every area of church life. Stage leadership, as you have it, small group leadership, on boards if you have them, on committees if you have them. You know, typically church leaders, when they're recruiting, they're looking for married people. And that's great. Married people are really stable and there's a track record, or tend to be pretty stable, because if they own homes and they have kids, they're sort of not transient. And I think a lot of us see single as transient, and that's why we don't necessarily maybe invest in them. But I would just go ahead and throw that out and say, listen, for as long as we have you at this church, we're going to invest in you. And begin recruiting and identifying and shoulder tapping the singles in your church who can lead, and help them lead.
I think that is excellent advice. There are so many people who can lead and have gifts. The church is we're meant to use our gifts to encourage the church, every single one of us. And the Lord is so gracious to help us do it. More on Living by Faith when we return. Welcome back to Living by Faith with Trillia Newbell. I'm talking with Doug Hankins. He is a pastor, professor, and friend to countless single adults. He's walked alongside for more than 20 years. He serves as the senior pastor of First Baptist Church in Winter Park, Florida, and teaches as an associate professor at the Baptist University of Florida. And you've pastored, you've worked with singles. Here's a question that I think is really unique, and one I don't think I've actually thought of before. What about singles groups at church for older singles? Because, so many of our calls have talked about, and even the statistics that you shared talked about how singleness is, it's the age of those who are single is increasing. So you're going to have more older single adults. So have you thought about, or do you see churches forming single groups that care for those older adults? And my producer, who actually is the one who asked this question, and I think it's a good one, she's heard that some churches shy away from this, not wanting to set up and quote unquote meat markets, which is really interesting. So just dating pools. Have you thought about that or seen anything about small groups or church groups for older singles?
Yes, I have so many hot takes on this. Okay, so here we go. Number one, I think it's a good place to start, but it's not a good place to stay. Okay, so if you need to engage people in your community, and their first step is in a church service, and their second step is in a singles group to kind of feel it out, that's great. But increasingly, the data and the best practices from churches is showing that integrating singles into your community life, with married and singles together, it's a more optimal community experience regardless of age. And so a couple churches do this really well. Tim Keller, one of my favorites, did this really well. He and Kathy at Redeemer in New York, they have tons of single people. Probably 60% of their congregation were single, but they didn't really have singles groups. They had groups based on affinity or location, but then they had women's groups. And what men's and women's groups do is they allow single people to have married friends. And there are just a lot of positive outcomes that happen out of that. So the more you can integrate singles into the whole of your community life, the better. At our church has a history of doing this very well. And so every Sunday school class, every small group is a mixture of married and single. And the ancillary benefit of that is that when holidays come in or when family heavy events take place, a lot of our married friends just have invited the singles to be part of their family. And family is what singles don't have, and family is what singles need. And so I think proximity to families is only going to be beneficial for both the families and also for the single people.
I love that. And I experienced that. Now, I did get married by these statistics young, even though at my age at that time it felt older, which is so ridiculous now looking back. But I got married young, and before I was married, I spent so much time with families, and I was discipled by families. I was mentored by mothers. It was a absolute blessing, and it really encouraged me. And you brought up Tim Keller, and one of our callers, Marianne in Chicago, has a comment about Tim Keller. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. Trillia, thank you so much for taking the subject on. Oddly enough, I listened on YouTube this morning to Tim Keller speak, and his topic was a theology of singleness. And I found it extremely, extremely helpful. Also, this discussion is helpful. But one thing he said is Christianity is the only thing that held up singleness as a viable paradigm of adult life. And he said it's okay to be single. And one of my takeaways from what he said was, the only thing that will fix me is the marriage supper of the Lamb. And I just found that extremely healing and wanted to share that. I'm 72. I had moved out of state to go to Bible school. My mother had a brain aneurysm when she was 48. I was 24. I had to move back home, and I had a 14-year-old brother. My father was deceased. And I just want to make the comment, too, that oftentimes single people have a lot of family responsibility. That's what I wanted to share, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Marianne. Stay on the line. We will make sure to get you a copy of Still Single, Still Called. And, you know, I love that it's just a reminder that the most important thing that we need is Jesus. and if we can keep that in the forefront of our minds, I do believe that will help as we're building community, as we're engaging in singleness, as we are caring for our families, which Janet in Chicago, you have a call and a comment, and you desire to help your family. Go ahead. Are we with Janet?
I'm Janet, but I'm not from Chicago.
Okay.
My original question was, I'm over 80 years old, and my adult children were married, but they seem more interested in business and things like that rather than family. And I just wonder where this fits in with singleness. You know, like a lot of people stay single, but then others marry, but still act as though they're single.
I understand. Thank you so much for your call, Janet. We will make sure you get a copy of Still Single, Still Called. And have you seen that, Doug? Have you seen that people just aren't interested? I think maybe in producing a family. And do you think that's part of the phenomenon? Just a shift in focus from a family, children, to business. Have you seen that?
Definitely. Business career is a strong motivator for the single life, a perpetual single life, because some jobs and careers just require flexibility. I mean, it would be irresponsible to try to bring a wife or a husband and kids into that. So some parts of medical professions, if you're in sales, anything that requires lots of travel, these things tend to happen. But I think there's actually even a deeper issue going on there, and that is there is an alarming existential dread shared by many people globally related to ideas of global warming and related to ideas of inequality with capital wealth. And so what you're finding is that in virtually every country, the birth rate is plummeting.
Yeah.
You need something like 2.3 kids to replace the population. And I remember Italy about 15 years ago hit 1.7, and people were, freaking out. Well, they're much lower today. And in places like Japan, young people are not dating, and they're not having sex, and they're not doing any of these things because they're afraid of they're afraid of bringing children into our world. And so I think leaders, and pastors included, church leaders, have got to get a handle on this earth that we live on, a reorientation to what it means and what our purpose is in cultivating the earth. And I think marriage and family is one implication of that. I think building infrastructure and institutions is obviously another important component of that. And so from that theology of the earth, I think you're going to find, and when people are thinking about that, you're going to have more families, but you're also going to have more people who are focused on career and institution building. And those aren't necessarily bad things or mutually exclusive. We've just got to keep all things, in moderation, I think, as believers in that respect. So
That's so helpful. Doug, we have a minute left, which is so sad. So in the next 30 seconds, this has been phenomenal, and it's been so helpful. How would you encourage, your last word, singles who are listening or those who are caring for singles? How would you like to encourage them?
Well, apparently this segment is called Single Saturday. So I would say for all my single friends out there, just remember, Jesus was single all his life and he thrived, and you can too. And churches, let's make room for singles so that we can encourage them in our communities.
Amen. That is our hope, and that's our goal, is to encourage people to thrive in their local church. I'd like to thank my guest, Doug Hankins, and my behind-the-scenes team at Moody Radio. My producer, Karen Hendren, my engineers, Merle St. James, my associate producer, Lisa Jimchi, and Simon on the phones today. To hear today's program again, you'll find it at livingbyfaithradio.org or on the Moody Radio app. You may also connect with us through Facebook and Instagram at Living by Faith. Living by Faith is a production of Moody Radio, a ministry of Moody Bible Institute.